Okay, I think we've given everyone time to hop in. So thank you for joining us today. Welcome to today's webinar with Appficiency, Master Field Service Operations to Strengthen Your Bottom Line. My name is Rebecca and I'm the Marketing Manager here at Appficiency, so thank you for joining us today. And let's jump into a quick agenda of what we'll be covering. So in today's session, we'll start with a brief intro with discussing kind of who we are, what we do, and then we'll chat about some common field service challenges, such as idle crews, callbacks, paperwork delays. Then we'll share some best practices from top teams and show you how NetSuite FSM and Appficiency can be customized for your workflows. Then we'll wrap it up with some real client stories, and then we'll talk about next steps. So just quick for housekeeping, if you have any questions, please put them in the Q&A section down below and we'll get to them at the end. First, let me take a moment to introduce today's speakers. We have Eric Ribeiro, our Senior Solution Architect. Eric has over 5 years of hands-on experience delivering tailored ERP solutions, and he specializes in procure-to-pay processes and pre-sales strategy. Joining him is Michael Morales. Michael is a NetSuite certified consultant with many years of experience leading implementations, training, and support. He's delivered over 15 client projects with Appficiency across industries like wholesale distribution, construction, CPG, and heavy equipment, with a focus on integrations, development, and ongoing support. So quick intro here to who we are at Appficiency and what we do. So we were founded in 2014 by former NetSuite subject matter experts, and we focus exclusively on NetSuite and its ecosystem. So our consultants pair technical skills with business knowledge, since we do have that deep industry expertise in a variety of project-based businesses. We do have the capability to support everything from scripting and configuration to designing processes that work specifically for your firm. Our experience covers job costing, field service management, complex project accounting, and integrations to keep teams in the field connected with finance and operations. So, quick overview of some of the services that we offer. We don't just do NetSuite implementations. We also provide tailored products like our Built for NetSuite software and reusable solutions for project-based needs. We also support our clients through premier support services, offering strategic planning and ongoing help after go live. We also can take on assessments, so evaluating if your current ERP system is working for you, defining how we can help make it work even better for you. So next, I'll hand it over to Eric to outline the field service struggles that we often see from our clients.
Perfect. Yeah. So good afternoon, folks. So I first wanted to anchor us sort of on what FSM actually is. And so what is FSM? Really, when we think about it at its core, Field Service Management, or FSM for short, really refers to the systems when we think about processes and software that really keep your field operations running smoothly. And so when we're talking about scheduling and dispatching, things like tracking assets, tracking our inventory, and really making sure that billing is accurate, and we're really pulling it all together with reporting. And so when we think about FSM, it's really what I like to reference. It's the nervous system for companies that rely on technicians, right? The service teams and the people really out in the field. And so FSM is really about giving your field teams the tools and information that they need to be more efficient, right? Make sure that your company's more profitable and really more connected to the business as a whole. It's really the difference between sort of simply sending people out into the field, not equipped with information, and really running a truly integrated front and back end. Next slide, please. And so when we think about sort of field service, we really often picture, technicians solving problems out in the field. They're fixing a piece of equipment, they're fixing a piece of machinery, and really with the end goal of keeping customers happy. But in reality, what we see is a lot of teams spend just as much time sort of wrestling with inefficiencies as they do with actually serving customers. And so today, what we wanted to highlight was some of the most common challenges that we see service organizations face, and then sort of contrast that with what we see really high-performing teams doing differently to really stay ahead of the curve. And so I always like to start with really the pain points, right? Because many of you will and may recognize some of these in your own operations. And so the issue of idle resources, right? We often hear technicians spend more time waiting than actually fixing the things that they've been assigned to do. And so they're either waiting for the next job assignment, they're waiting for parts from their vendors or material suppliers, or they're waiting for approvals to occur. And what we see is that idle time isn't just frustrating for the technician itself, but it's also costly for the business, and it can oftentimes influence the customer satisfaction. And then what we also hear is sort of back and forth communication with headquarters, right? We've seen it, we've heard it, you've probably experienced it. Technicians sort of standing in a customer's driveway or at a warehouse or somewhere at the job site, and they're really on the phone with the back office trying to get job details, right? They're trying to understand customer history, what's been fixed, what hasn't been fixed, what are they there on site to address, or they're waiting for approval again for that next step. Meanwhile, right, customer or the client is really sort of watching this sort of play out, and it can start to influence again their confidence in ultimately the technician and the company as a whole. And then third, parts unavailability. And so oftentimes trucks get dispatched, but sometimes they get dispatched without the right equipment or without the right spare parts in the van or the truck. That often leads to sometimes a second visit, which again directly sort of impacts that first time fix rate in customer satisfaction, right? We want to ensure that when we're ultimately sending out our technicians out into the field, they have not only the resources but the parts needed to actually fix what they were sent out to do. And then paper processes, we hear this all too often. And this is probably the most common pain point that we hear is many organizations are still relying on printed out job sheets, handwritten notes, or even a bundle of spreadsheets. Really what we see that impacting is oftentimes delayed invoicing, there's errors in billing, and really what we call sort of a slower cash flow cycle. Because if you don't have time, materials that were used on the job site, folks out in finance who are doing sort of the back end of the process, again, the invoicing and billing, they're not going to have the information at their fingertips to go ahead and turn around the information that is happening within the front end. And so for a service business, right, those delays can really make a real impact on your bottom line. Now, if we start to think about sort of what does the other side of the coin look like, right, for high-performing service organizations who do things differently. First and foremost, right, they're measuring the right things. And so instead of focusing only on how many jobs are completed, they track metrics like first-time fix rates. They're tracking things like technician utilization, ensuring that the technicians that they currently have on the bench aren't going underutilized, and they're actually on jobs working with customers, addressing issues that those customers have, right? They're focusing on SLA compliance and agreements that they have in place with their customers. And then, of course, the service to cash time, ensuring that the right information is flowing back to the back office to ensure, prompt processing of things like service reports, invoices back to the customer. So those are the indicators that we've seen really show whether the operation is healthy. And then second, they focus on standardizing workflows. So we know field teams and back office teams, when they're following consistent processes, that helps, again, reduce confusion. It helps eliminate redundant steps and it helps them focus on the things that matter, and ensures that sort of seamless handoff, again, between that front end and back end operation. And then third, right, organizations that empower technicians with real-time information is really one of the things that differentiates some of our leading organizations that focus on FSM. So what that means is, a technician on site can see things like full asset history. They can see full fix history, right? They can understand the customer service record at the palm of their hand. They can see what available inventory they either have in a van or back at their warehouse without having to call the office. Again, that's going to reduce how much time they're spending on the job site, make sure that ultimately they're not wasting time at the job site. And again, it's going to improve the customer's perception because they have all the information past and current to address that customer's need. And then fourth is we see organizations who do really well in the FSM space digitize their job sheets. And so, although it sounds like a simple shift, right, but it's a huge payoff because oftentimes many organizations will still work with paper trails, right? You have a list of paper documents that you're using or different checklists that you ultimately need to complete on a job site. What we see is when you start to digitize those forms, the information that needs to be captured out in the field ultimately gets captured appropriately, ultimately gets approved faster, and then gets to the back office operation to process that information to then go ahead and process that for things like billing and invoicing. And so what that means is you're no longer having to dissect what someone wrote on a post-it note or on a paper sheet. So that means fewer errors. Again, you have faster approvals, and you're significantly less dependent on admin trying to sort of find that information because everything is ultimately integrated and digitized. And then lastly, right, they connect service to finance. And I've been hitting on this sort of throughout. When we start to see field activity flow directly into billing, right, when we don't see sort of anything falling through the cracks from the front end to the back end, invoices go out faster. And again, the business is able to sort of strengthen its cash position and get things out to its customers to ultimately pay on time. And so really the difference between service teams who currently experience pain points before coming to NetSuite and high performing ones that are on NetSuite often comes down to this, right? It's how well they connect people on the front end, right? How they connect those people to processes and the information that everyone within the company ultimately needs to leverage or utilize for their specific function. And so when you eliminate the back and forth, right, and you give those technicians the tools that they need, they don't just cut costs, they actually create a better customer experience and really stronger financial incomes. Next slide. And so, as we've just sort of highlighted, right, service organizations face a lot of moving pieces, right? Techs in the field, again, they have assets to track, they have inventory to manage, finance has billings to close. And the way those pieces fit together really has a huge impact on both efficiency and customer satisfaction. And so the challenge that we see is that many businesses still rely on paper trails or a bundle of spreadsheets to sort of manage it all. And so that's why, right, having a connected field service management platform really makes a huge difference, right? When you have one system linking your field, linking it to your office, linking it to your finance team, everything is integrated and sort of flows together. That way, we ensure that folks that need it have real-time visibility across jobs, across inventory, across equipment or your assets, and across billings, right? Workflows sort of become standardized, which means they're easy to train, right? Easier to scale, and far less error prone. And so again, the result is a much smoother operation that sort of grows with the business instead of sort of holding it back. And so that's exactly why we wanted to present NetSuite's Field Service Management and actually give you some examples of customers that we've implemented FSM for, right? And so, right, theory's one thing, but results are another. And so really to bring that to life, I'd love to hand things over to Michael, who's going to walk you through sort of how we've helped a couple of our customers actually put this into practice and the real outcomes that they ultimately achieved. So Michael, I'll pass it over to you.
Sounds good. Thank you, Eric. Yeah, so one thing we're going to focus on is some of the customizations and or changes we made to the field service management suite for some of our customers. So out of the box, obviously, field service management is great for businesses, but we understand that standard process might not fit for everybody's needs. So a few things that we've done for a lot of our customers is we've built some custom mobile forms and checklists, things like capturing photos and signatures, digital signatures from our customers that then push back into the native NetSuite UI. We've also handled an integration with Service Channel, which we'll talk about a little bit later, so that data from one system can flow directly into the field service management module seamlessly. We've also dealt a lot with external contractors and subcontractors and how our clients have scheduled them. We've come up with different solutions and ways to do that. So we'll talk about our scheduler. And then as Eric kind of mentioned previously, a lot of digital quality and reporting and automated invoicing to help to get the invoices out faster and get those invoices paid in a timely manner. So that'll all help with this communication between the field service staff and the back office staff. If we can go to the next slide, please. So we're going to be talking about two client stories today. One example from Francis Thomas, and then we're also going to be focusing on another client called AGM. So Francis Thomas, a little background about them before we hop into it, is they are a contracting company based in Ontario, Canada. They prepare lots and foundations. They have a team of 50 plus and about $5 million in revenue. We took them live earlier this year in March of 2025, and we implemented finance, advanced projects, CRM, item management, and then of course field service management. And then we've also used our products as well, Appficiency job costing and the retainage module. So we were able to give them real-time visibility in one platform and streamline their collaboration between their field service staff and their back office. So if we go to the next slide, please. Here is one customization that we did for Francis Thomas. So what this customization does is it's a role-based time entry logic that allows their field service staff in the field to select the appropriate service item based on the type, based on a field value on their employee record. So what this allowed for them to do is it eliminated any errors of the field service member choosing the wrong service item. And so when they entered their time against a particular task or a particular job, it would automatically pull that service item into the time entry and automatically populate it for them. So it also eliminated button clicks for the field service team in the field when they were entering their time. This is the crux of this customization. It did some other things in the background, but this allowed for their team to really enhance their time entry when they were putting in their time. So if we go to the next slide, please. And then our other client that we're going to be focusing on is All Green Management, or AGM. They are based out of the Maryland in the United States. They specialize in upgrading and maintaining commercial properties, particularly existing structures. They include stormwater management, general contracting, turnkey construction, snow removal, and custom maintenance services are all the services that they provide. They have a little bit of a smaller team, about 50 to 55 employees, heavily relying on their subcontractors to help deliver their services across the mid and southern Atlantic and Midwest in the United States. So they use a wide variety, similar to Francis Thomas, of finance projects, time and expense, order to cash, procure to pay, and of course, field service. And then AGM is actually our client that we integrated with Service Channel. As we go through this, I'll talk about that later down the road. But we really did a lot of customizations for their mobile app that really enhanced what their techs were able to do in the field. So if we go to the next slide, please. Before we get into the mobile app, though, here is an example of a customization we did in our scheduler. So with the FSM scheduler, you can see on the far left, we have what we consider trucks or equipment. So we customized this particular scheduler so that we could have trucks on the scheduler along with employees. This allowed for them to be able to see what truck was scheduled to what job or what task, along with what employee was going to be at that job or task. So they were able to track both the equipment that was going to be going and the users that were going to be going so that they could know which inventory needed to be put on what truck. We can also utilize the scheduler with subcontractors. So you can add your subcontractors within NetSuite, make them a field service user or not, and you can track and set appointments for them so that they can see, okay, hey, this subcontractor is going here, or this subcontractor is going there. So it really provides real-time visibility so the back office and the field staff know exactly what tasks and jobs are scheduled for the week. So this really cuts down on any confusion on who's going to be on site and hopefully cuts down on any missed appointments moving forward with the team. So if we go to the next slide, please. So here is an example of a mobile app customization that we did for AGM. So AGM requested that they wanted to have this type of checklist for fence and gate work orders. And you can see on the screenshot there, we have different drop downs that can be chosen from. So we've set up all of these important fields on the task and the case and put it into their mobile app. So what this did is it eliminated the paperwork that the tech would have to carry with him and then fill out by pen and paper. So he or she, while on the mobile app, be able to go in, select the dropdown, choose what they want, and then move on to the next field. So again, this helped reduce errors. It ensured consistent data capture throughout the field service team. And then it also helps with the historical keeping of this data. So this data will push back to that job or that case, and it will be stored on that record. So this way, anybody can go back and they can see, okay, hey, Tech A went out and they did fence and gate work order, and they can track that. This was a minor customization, but it had a huge impact for AGM for consistency among their team. So if you go to the next slide, please. Also for AGM, we added an expense section. Out of the box, does expense reports, but for this customization, they required that they wanted the expense section to actually generate a vendor bill. So what this would allow is the technician could create a vendor bill directly from their mobile app. And then this requires no delay. It pushed directly back into the NetSuite UI. And then the field service office staff were able to review these vendor bills, approve them, and get the payments paid to their vendors immediately if needed. So this is a reusable solution that can be implemented across all environments, depending on what is needed in your use case. If you go to the next slide, please. And then same concept here, except on the AR side now. So out of the box, FSM offers a sales order module for the mobile app, but we added it for AGM, excuse me, to be able to do customized quotes. So this allowed the technician to create a quote on site, show it to the customer, and then send it back to the field service office staff to generate a sales order and approve it, or let them know if there needs to be any adjustments. So this in turn means faster turnaround time on the approvals, less back and forth for the office, and ultimately a smoother experience for both the tech and the customer. And again, back to the historical recording, this also tracks it electronically, so they would have a record of this everywhere and not looking for papers and trying to read technicians' writing. If we go to the next slide, please. Also added some different signatures and detail fields, message fields that the tech can input as they are going through their checklists. So we customize this mobile interface to push back to the task, along with having other signatures, documentation, and photos. So they roughly had 20 plus photos that I could not fit all of them, that would push back to the case and or the job. This would then be stored on that case/job for all other users to see, so that the techs can say, hey, yes, I did this. Here's an example. I did this. Here's an example. And they also track before and after pictures. If you go to the next slide, please. So the big piece, or the biggest piece that we did for AGM here, is the service channel integration. So their team relies heavily on Service Channel to manage service requests from their customers and track performance across many locations. So what we did is we built a integration between the Service Channel and NetSuite using Celigo, and this is the first time this has ever been done. And it automatically converts Service Channel's tickets into NetSuite cases. So this means that there's no manual reentry, there's a real-time sync between systems, and a faster turnaround time on getting those cases assigned and done. It's improved the team's coordination and given AGM a central view of job performance within NetSuite, so they're not having to go back and forth between Service Channel and their old ERP system. Yeah. So this helps really give AGM a clear view of where they stand on all of their open tickets. So if you go to the next slide, please. So just a quick lucid flow of how the flow works. So everything starts with a service request and Service Channel, and then that is where it creates a case in NetSuite. Once in NetSuite, it becomes then part of the native FSM module flow. So that case would automatically create a project. You can create tasks and assign those tasks to particular technicians. And then those technicians can go through and do their job, go through those checklists that we went through previously, create vendor bills, create quotes, and everything within the mobile app. So on top of that, once we get there, it's a two-way flow that ensures both platforms are aligned as we get into the billing and financial reconciliation. So the dealer invoice structure that is within Service Channel ensures the Service Channel integration and invoice that gets pushed to NetSuite is the exact same that it is in Service Channel. So there's the invoice gets generated in Service Channel, goes through the digital invoice structure, and creates an invoice within NetSuite. So pretty cool customization shows that we're able to integrate with other softwares and get it within the mobile app and push back and forth. If we go to the next slide, please. So not going to read the testament necessarily from Will, but Will was one of our main partners we worked with. It was great to work with the AGM team and go through that process with them. And they are doing great within NetSuite and using FSM to its full extent. And big proponent on they love the integration with Service Channel and how we were able to set it up between Service Channel and NetSuite. So I'll pass it on to Rebecca.
Awesome. Thank you, Michael. So I just wanted to close off today's webinar by inviting you to engage us in a demo. So we're always happy to chat with you, learn about your business, really understand your field service, how it's functioning as it stands right now, and how we could potentially improve it. If any of these customizations that we walked you through today sound interesting, we'd be happy to get in contact with you. So please reach out to us at prospects@appficiencyinc.com or visit our website and fill out the contact us form. We also have quite a few case studies on the website if you'd like to check those out, see if any of the work we've done previously resonates. So thank you again so much for speaking today, Michael and Eric. I will just bring us into the Q&A session. So if you have any questions from any of the notes that Eric shared, any of the client stories that Michael shared, please put them down in the Q&A and we will get to them. So let's see here. So we've got someone asking, it seems like there are a lot of customizations. What customization is the most common and why is it important?
Yeah, I can take this one first, and then Michael, if you want to maybe layer on. I think the most common one, if we think about it right, it's the checklists. Most organizations have organization-specific checklists by job type, and so no two checklists are ever the same from organization to organization. And so oftentimes what we're doing early on in the evaluation is understanding not only the quantity of checklists that organizations have, but what needs to be included in each of the different types of checklists that their technicians ultimately need to complete the job that they're doing on site. So whether it's understanding, a safety checklist or a job general checklist that includes, information of the client, asset history. All of those are common things that I wouldn't necessarily call customizations, but configurations to things that we can ultimately build out within the FSM app for the organization specifically.
Yeah, 100%. I think, yep, checklists 100% are the biggest one, and a lot of those stem from the type of job that might be getting done per client's requirement, right?
Yep.
Go on site, you need to do a fire inspection, so there's a fire inspection checklist you might need to do. You go on site and it's a break fix, so you have a different checklist, safety checklist that you might need. So yeah, checklist being the biggest one, as that varies from client to client. NetSuite out of the box has a standard one, but most of the time you want unique custom fields that would make sense to your team.
Awesome. Okay, thank you. So what difference would real-time mobile access to job details, asset history, and inventory make for your technicians?
Yeah, I can take this one again.
Mhm.
So it's really the difference between like your field techs being informed or uninformed, or ready for the job or not ready for the job, right? Because if we think about sort of techs out in the field, they need information ultimately to complete the job, whether it's information on those checklists, whether it's information about the actual assets, whether it's information about the customer. All of that information lives somewhere. If it's not digitized or if it's not at their fingertips, usually it's in someone's mind or in some spreadsheet that they're just not going to have time and potentially access to while they're on the job site. And so really the difference is it cuts down sort of on the back and forth calls between the technician and whoever the dispatcher is or someone in the administration office. And it really just helps them know exactly what's needed before arriving. And it sort of helps sort of reduce the delays by having the right information in the right parts to address whatever piece of equipment or assets or machinery that they're on site to ultimately fix.
Okay, great. I'll ask one more question here. So, how valuable would it be to connect field work directly in NetSuite billing and automate invoices?
I can hop in on that. So very, very valuable. It allows, right? So as a technician, as I'm on site, I'm able to log my time directly, and it pushes back into the NetSuite UI. So then from there, right, we can have our billing schedules, et cetera, everything set up in the native NetSuite UI, and then those time entries can be billed out on those invoicing. So it allows for that seamless, I guess I don't want to say integration, connection is a better word, seamless connection between the mobile app of what the technician is and what the technician is doing, and then what the back office sees. I don't know, Eric, if you wanted to add anything on top of that.
Yeah, exactly. Michael sort of wrapped it up in a nice bow. It essentially shortens the time between sort of doing the actual work out in the field and then ultimately getting that information to whoever needs it on the finance or accounting side to ultimately invoice the customer and get paid for the actual service that was done, right? And if we think of, high volume scenarios where you may have hundreds, potentially thousands of break fix calls in a given month, right? You can quickly get backlogged if those two areas of your business, the front end and back end, aren't integrated. So in high volume, excuse me, scenarios, we see that as extremely valuable because now you're digitizing everything, right? Your field work is directly connected to the folks in the back office who can then simply approve what was done on site, see that information, right? Ask questions, take notes as needed to the field tech, again, through the app, and ultimately, process the information that, again, was captured out in the field. Because if we think about it, right, we're capturing so much information out in the field, whether it's information on the checklist, whether it's photos about the work that was completed, comparing that work to ultimately what it looked like when they first arrived on site. So that all that information has to flow back. And if it's not digitized, what are the most common ways that information gets translated to the back office? And so commonly, right, for folks who don't have an integrated solution or a connected solution, it's going to be a paper trail. It's going to be spreadsheets. It's going to be paper notes. And that takes time, that takes energy, that takes a lot of resources to be able to manage that. Again, if we think about sort of at scale, you're doing 100, 1,000 break fix calls in a given month, you may be dedicating 1, 2, 3, 4 resources just to process that higher volume.
Okay, that wraps up our Q&A session. Thank you, Eric. Thank you, Michael. So thank you again for joining us for today's webinar all about FSM. Again, please reach out if you have any additional questions. We'd be happy to meet with you, learn more about your business. So thank you. Thanks everyone for their time and have a great day.
Thanks, Roel.